Hello everyone and welcome to Geonodes Daily series where we do something cool in geometry nodes and we try to do it as fast as possible. And today we will dive deeper into the Chocolate Sea project and we are going to see how we can create a morphing effect like the one you see today in the video. Yesterday I showed you how to create the mixed floats and mixed vector presets, and tomorrow I'm going to show you how to make the fake meetables that give this nice chocolate flowing appearance to this showcase demo. So stay tuned and keep watching, because this is going to be really interesting and useful to you. Like you see in this card, this is what we will be dealing with today. Before we dive into the project, I kind of have to take care of this part. I'm not really good and I don't like the commercial part, but I really would like to see this channel grow and keep moving. So if you want to support that, you can purchase from Gumroad the project file. We'll have everything that you see here, a ton of controls in the geometry nodes setup that will allow you to change the monkey object to whatever geometry you want, position, rotate it. You have even two controls for the morphing effect and the melting. You can dissolve the object, and a bunch of other parameters that are actually nicely explained. I put even tooltips. So apart from that, something I forgot to tell you, you get this also, this nice compositor preset, transition effect, that you can do a bunch of stuff like fading between images, adding whatever effect you want, and control the duration and the frame where this one is going to be positioned, and the procedural materials that I used in this project. You kind of get a free variation of that material that you see here. So a bunch of value for your money, and not to mention that you get to support this channel. So don't worry if you can't do that. I'm going to go through the entire project, show you everything, so nothing gets locked behind a paywall or something like that. So without further ado, let's get started with our morphing effect. Looking at a fresh new file. So in order to continue, we are going to need two things. One, we are going to need our objects, and two, we are going to need our preset. So let's do this. You can do append, and when you go where you have the file, you go inside of it, node tree, and then you select your preset and you do append. I already did that, so we have this preset here. At the beginning of the video, if I remember, I put a link, so you can see the first part with how this was built. But if you just want to take a quick look at the nodes, I'm not going to make you go to that video. I'm just going to tab in, and this is how the node setup works. And like I said, I explained in the previous video why it's working and how it's working. And this is a very cool setup, because unlike this one on which is based, you get this overflowing, because you can do whatever values here you want and go negative and stuff like that. So you will get a lot of cool stuff. And unlike this one that has a clamp, automatically 0 to 1 range, we have here a clamp, and you can decide the value to be clamped here. And as you can see, everything is fields, this diamond shape. So that means you can get really, really cool effects. I played with this and I got something really interesting. So let's quickly add a monkey. I'm gonna deactivate this and bring it into our node tree, and let's connect it here. I'm gonna delete the input for now. So now we have this monkey in our setup, and we had a torus. So let's quickly create a torus here. I'm gonna do for that a curve circle, and I'm gonna plug it here. And then you can do curve to mesh to turn this into a mesh, and duplicate this one, plug it here, and now we have torus, and we can control its settings. So let's say something like this looks awesome to me. So that will be the torus object. Sorry about coughing. And the third object, we had a chocolate bar in the demo. I'm going to show you at the end how to actually make that chocolate. For now, let's just use a cube, plug it here, and just size it a little bit, something like that. And we will use this as our chocolate. So now we have these three objects waiting for us to do our thing. So first point, explaining the logic behind this. Like you saw it at the beginning, we will make sure that morphing between these objects will give us a nice result. We will have the same number of points, and I want to explain that to you. What morphing actually does, and what it does, it's just moving the position of the points of one geometry into another one. And anyone that tried its hands at animation knows that as soon as you start to distort meshes, you get very weird results. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Let's use this preset, and for the first input, let's put the position. That's going to take the position of the object plugged in here. And for the second one, let's do attribute, transfer attribute, take this mesh, switch this one to a float, and let's extract the position from this geometry here, our torus. Let me put a name. Okay. Excellent. And for that, let's use the index, and we are going to plug this one here. So now if we start to play with this one, we can morph between the objects. And as you can see, we get very weird results. And you may ask yourself why. The answer is simple, because this is what happens when you try to distort a mesh. So, not to mention that we have a certain number of points here and a certain number of points here. So even if we increase this resolution, something like this, we're still gonna get some problems, as you can see. And that's generated by the difference in the number of points for once, and the fact that we are actually working with the mesh. So let's turn this into points. And I'm going to show you what happens when you have different number of points into a mesh. So let's do distribute points on faces, plug it here, and let's say a density of 1000. And now we get something like this, which can be something that you want or not. So let's turn this one into points as well. Let's do Control C, Control V, plug this one here, and now you see what's happening. Because we don't have the same number of points, we get this weirdness. So let's say we increase this here by a lot. Now we get more weirdness. So let's decrease this one. And now we seem to get something, but it's not exactly, because now we have here like 1000 points, and here we have like 6000 points. So this looks great, but when we start to morph, we can see that all the extra points are bunching up in one corner, and at the end it's going to look good, but while we'll do the transition, we get this weirdness. So that's the problem that I want to address. Of course, for this morphing effect that you saw in the demo, it's not going to be a big problem, but I want to show you a setup that will allow you to actually use it any way you want. For example, you can instance something on these points and get something cool like a particle effect and stuff like that. So how can we do that? Well, the idea is that instead of just distributing this in a random fashion, because we actually don't have any control here, even if I put the same number from here, I'm gonna get different number of points. See, like 6000 and something and 9000 and something, because it's based on the surface area, and that's gonna mess up things for us. So the logic that I'm going to use is generate a point cloud that I can control the number to have a precise number of points, let's say like 1000 points, and then I'm going to distribute all these points in a cube that is going to surround our objects, whatever objects we have, doesn't matter. And then I'm going to use proximity to make the points that I already generate stick to the shapes, these two shapes. Then when we are going to morph, we are going to morph on the exact number of points, so we will get rid of all that weirdness. So let's do that, and that's going to be in itself a very interesting thing to see. So being a different method, we are not going to need this stuff here, and we are not going to need this. We will instead use a geometry proximity. I'm going to plug this one here. Faces is great. That's going to give us the position of the points of this object. And then we'll do the same for this one. So that's going to give us the same for the torus. And once more for this outside object that we have here. Is a monkey. So now we have these three positions here ready for us to use. So what is needed now is to generate a point cloud. So let me select these nodes and move it a little bit here. You get here. And for this part, let's do a mesh line. At the beginning, we are going to put everything at 0, 0 location, and this input here is going to be our point cloud number. It's an important number. So let's start with 1000 points, and now as you can see, we have everything here. We have a bunch of points. So let's turn this one into points. I'm going to do a mesh. Actually, I think points to vertices. No, it's mesh to points. So now I have a bunch of points here. Excellent. And now we want to look at this to see what we have. I'm gonna select this one, Shift F to replace the noodle. And right now we have 1000 points and everything is stuck here. So let's distribute these points, and for that we are going to use a set position, plug this one here. Let's save the file. And for the distribution, let's use a random value node. Let's switch this one to vector. We are going to plug this into the position, and immediately you see our points getting distributed according to whatever we have here. So let's do something simple. Let's do -1 to 1. This is important to encompass our objects. Otherwise, we will get weird results when we do the proximity thing. Here is some manual setup. At the end, I'm going to show you how to do it a little bit more procedurally. But for now, it's good. We have our cloud points, and now we can play with positions. So let's say we are going to take our torus shape. Let's put it here up and plug it here. Now, actually, let's start with the chocolate. Doesn't really matter. You can mix it anywhere you want. So this is going to be our first input. And then let's say the torus will be our second input. And now we can connect this one to our output. So right now we get nothing happening here. And that's to be expected because this set position node has no input. And the input we want is this point cloud. Let me call this point cloud. Okay, so as soon as we connect this one here, as you can see, we get this morphing. But as you can see, we still have some problems because we kind of need to make sure that we have more space to work with. Otherwise, the object is not perfectly encompassed. And we also need some more points. So let's do something like, yeah, this is excessive. Something like this. So now we have enough points and we start to play with this. And as you can see, we get a different distribution. And things look a lot better now. And this is the cool part. You can play with these settings and get different results. We will do this in the bonus section. Don't forget we are still creating the morphing effect now. So let's leave it like this. And let's see how we can incorporate the final object. Well, we can simply duplicate this node and we can plug it here. And then we can take the position from our monkey and plug it here. And now we have a second factor that will morph into our monkey. So now let's see how we can control both of these together. Let's do an input, a float value input, and I'm going to connect this one directly here. And for the second one, I'm going to use a map range because I kind of want to control where we start to morph into the second object here. So let's say when we get at the value 1, and let's say we'll go like 10, why not? To get some overshooting. So now we can do this. And when we start to morph, we get from the first object to the torus. And when we start to pass 1, we start to morph into the second object. And as you can see, we start to get this cool overshoot effect. Or we can remove the clamp, let's say from 1 to 2, and we get from this one to the second one, and then we get the monkey by the 2, and then we start to overshoot and get different stuff going on, something like this. So let's put it on 2. Now we have the monkey. Of course, we can improve the resolution by increasing the number of points. So here you go. This is how you can create the morphing effect that I showed you in the demo. But now for the cool part, I'm going to show you how to make the chocolate bar, because now we have just a simple ugly cube. And after that, I'm going to show you a little bit of what you can do by playing with clamp values and stuff like that. So let's look at this cube that we have here, that it's our chocolate bar, and move it a little bit on this side here. And we can start to do a little bit of playing around with this. So let's say, let's do a length of 2, just to be on the safe side. Let's make this one like a lot thinner, something like this. This will be the base. And then we can use a geometry, actually mesh, extrude mesh, plug this one here. Faces is good, individual is good, and for the scale, let's do something like 0.1, something like this. And let's build a selection, because we don't want to extrude all the faces, we just want to extrude the one on the top. So how can we do this? Well, we can take an input position node, plug it here, and do vector separate XYZ. We only care about the height, meaning the Z value. So we can do now a compare of the Z value with something that is above 0. So let's say that we want to extrude everything that it's equal to whatever value we have here for the Z. That will be the top size. So for that, let's just do a vector, combine XYZ. I'm gonna put 2 here, I'm gonna put 1 here, plug this one here, and use an input value here of 0.1 we had, or whatever value. So now we have a value that we can use it in conjunction with this, and that's gonna be our selection. So everything that it's equal to this value is gonna get extruded. That's the idea. And as you can see, it's not exactly working. And why is that? Because this is going in both directions, as you can see. So basically what we need here is half of this value, because we push part of the geometry here and part of the geometry here. So let's just do a simple math here, plug this one here, switch it to divide by 2, and now things are going to work, because we are selecting the faces that are top here at half of this value. So now our extrusion is working just fine. It's still not looking a lot as a chocolate, because even though we extruded the individual faces like you see here, we have them not scaled. So before we do that, let's look at these vertices, switch to this view, and we have too much vertices, so let's switch it back to, let's say, 2, and let's split this chocolate into two parts here, and let's see how much we want to have as top part, something like this. I think it's gonna be good. So let's switch back to solid, not render, And what we need to do now is to scale these faces. So if we go to mesh, we have these scale elements, and now we have a selection built in the top part. This is what we want, and we can start to scale these faces to get whatever value looks good for us. So let's say 0.5. Yeah, now we start to have something that looks like a chocolate. Great. Now we can reconnect everything back and see how it's working when we start to play with these values. We can even overshoot the other way around and add 0. Okay. We get this weird value, and that's because of this. We need to tweak this a little bit. Let's clamp the value, and let's say instead of going from 0 to 1, let's allow some overshooting, like 2.5, let's say. And instead of going from minimum 1 to 2, let's allow a value of 5 and see what's going on now. We can morph to this, and then we can morph to this, and then we can do some overshooting, and we are going to stop at whatever value we want. So let me show you what you can do if you start to play with clamp. So let's say we clamp this value here, and now we have these controls. So let's do like -2 for these ones, and let's clamp it on one of the axes, something like this. Let's put it at 0. Now when you start, if you use clamp on this one as well, you kind of get something interesting go on. So let's leave it this one like this, and as you can see, you get this interesting effect going on. So let's do like -2 on this one, and let's do like 2 on this one, and 0.2 on this. So you start at 0, you have your chocolate, and when you start to play with this, you get this flattened on the top donut, and then you can do a morphing and still get the flatness here. It's like cut out. And of course you can animate these values, you can put some random stuff on it, and you can do a bunch of things like for example, leave it like this, and 2, and I have this monkey here, and then I can do a wipe effect like this, just by playing with the clamp values. And of course you can wipe it the other way around, and you can get some really cool results. Don't forget that you don't have to do this just with the linear value like here. You can actually add some randomness. So let's do a random value, something like this, and do math, add this value with this value, and when you start, you can get something completely different just because you added some randomness. So let me cut this one and start at here. As you can see, things go completely different. And imagination is the limit. You can do whatever you want with this. You can get really cool results. Like I said, you can play with the clamp. You can do this weird thing. You can even do a random here. So you can get something else going on. Only part of the points are clamped. Yeah, let's do that. I think that's going to be really fun. So let me do something like 2, and now we have the monkey here, and let's do a random value here and do something like this. Put this on 0 and leave it like this, something like this. And as you can see, you can play with this one and you can get something like this, another dissolving effect and stuff like that. So you get a lot of control with this. And before we finish, I kind of want to look a little bit on the parameters of this by showing you the original setup. So going back to this project that it's on Gumroad, I want to show you two things, very important things. How this melting control is created. You see, you can melt the object, something like this. You have a simple slider that is doing this to your object, and it starts to melting. And something else important. You have this ability to choose an object and place it into your setup, but that means that you don't know the size of the hero object that you are going to use. So if it's too big, given the fact that we basically created a point cloud that it has in a cube shape that has to encompass the object, you can get to a scenario where you have these point clouds like this, and your object is sticking outside, and you lose part of the information. So in order to avoid that, I did this final setup. You get this object info, then taking the bounding box, I calculated the diagonal by subtracting from the minimum, the maximum, and doing a length of that. And then I normalized everything to make sure that the object, no matter what size it has, gets to be approximately 2 meters by dividing this output to the 4 by this output, and then using the result as a scale that makes sure that the object, no matter how big it is going to be resized to fit into our point cloud that we generated. And for the point cloud, what I did, I decided on this spreading distance of 2, like we did in the demo. And the melting effect goes like this. We take this value and we check things out with this setup that you see here, that it's generating the minimum and maximum values for this setup. So how this works, if we have a value of 0, then we can simply use this static value of 2, and that means if we are at 0 with the melting effects, that's cancelled. We just get this static 2 by 2 point cloud. Otherwise, we take this value into account and shrink or enlarge the point cloud. Basically, we shrink it. We get a value that goes from this maximum of 2 that we know that will encompass the object to a 0. So this slider from 0 to 1, it's decided here, will make the point clouds become smaller and smaller and smaller, and that's going to give you that melting effect that you see here, because the point cloud is getting smaller, as you can see. So it starts to cut on the object. and that's basically the melting effect. So this video turned out to be a lot longer than I wanted. I'm sorry about that. I really want to hear your suggestions, how I can make things shorter without leaving important stuff out, because I really want you to understand what I'm doing here. But I also want to make it as fast as possible. So make sure to leave comments if you have suggestions. I will try to incorporate them into my tutorials so I can get things better for you. So thank you very much for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next part where we will look at how to make this meetable like effect that you see here. That's going to be also really interesting. And after that, in another video, I'm going to show you how I made the materials. Until then, have a nice day and happy blending!